Hey guys, I'm back at HTHS, sitting in the hallway in my office, and I was thinking, take that off, that we'll do one more story. I wanted to do one more story with you guys here at the end of the year, just to start working on making inferences. Because making inferences is really important. We've talked about plots and different types of characters and different types of narrators. We've talked about what's going on literally in stories, but we want to advance beyond that a little bit. We want to be able to read stories so that we're reading between the lines. That's what making inferences is. It means that what we're looking at, what we're reading in a story, it's there, but it's not told to us specifically. So we've already done this a little bit. We did this with Stephen King's story when we were talking about indirect representation, what type of character somebody is, not based on what we're told, but what we see in a character. So we're going to do that now at a more advanced level. We're going to do it with one of my favorite stories that I've done in the last few years with grade 9. It's a story called The Pale Man. The Pale Man was published in like a pulp magazine. There were people, and there still are, who actually made a living writing, just kind of getting paid by the story by the word, which is quite different than how we think of writers. A lot of times when we think of writers, we think of them as people who either hit it big and sell a novel like J.K. Rowling, and then they just sell tons and tons, and they can keep writing or they can stop, or Stephen King, right? They get rich, or they write and they write and nobody really picks them up and they can't make a living. But there are people who just write for magazines. They write every week. They write a story. They get paid, a few $100s, something to keep them going, and then they write a new story. And this was something that was big in the 20s and 30s. The writer of this story, The Pale Man, was writing in a magazine that told kind of eerie, spooky, gothic stories. What's important about The Pale Man is, and the reason why I chose it for making inferences, is because this is a really good story if you make inferences. If you make inferences and you figure out what's actually happening in the story, it's a really good story. If you don't make any inferences, it's not going to work. You're going to be wondering what's happening. You're going to be confused. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to be confused right up until the end, and then figure it out. It's okay if you have to go back and try to make inferences and figure out what's going on. But what we're looking at is we got to figure out who this pale man is, what he's doing, what's happening in the story, and if we can figure it out, then we know how the story ends, and we know what's been happening and what the conflict has been. But if we can't make inferences, we're going to be stuck. We're not going to know what the conflict is. We're not going to know what the climax is. That's why it's such a good story. You're going to listen to the story while you read along. I've linked to a YouTube video of a telling of a story, which is really cool, so you can read along. And then you can also, once you're done, you're going to make some inferences. So I have a sheet there. If you look at the sheet on the first page, it's like for you to do individually, and then if we were in class, then the second page you would go and do it as a group. So if you want more room, you can just fill out the group side, okay? Just fill out the group side of that, so that you have some more room to write your answers. So we have some strategies for making inferences. We want to look at the details, the little tiny things that reveal important ideas about plot and setting. We want to really look at those details. They are there to give us hints. We want to look at it like a detective. I'm reading over here, so that's why I'm looking this way. Okay, we want to use common knowledge, make connections, use prior knowledge. No one's going to tell us the answer. No one's going to tell us who the pale man is or what he's doing or how it ends. We have to figure that out. We have to analyze the character, figure out their values, figure out their actions and words, pay really close attention to how the narrator makes inferences. The characters make inferences. They're making guesses at what's going on. Figure out if you think they're right or they're wrong, or if they're putting things together. Analyze your thought process as you go, though. Inferences have to be correct. So inferences aren't just making guesses and just saying, well, it doesn't say either way, so I don't know. Inferences are there. The answers are there between the lines, and you have to inference it correctly, or you won't get the right theme. You won't understand the story. Okay. Strategies for making predictions, because you need to make predictions. You got to figure out what motivates a character, what are their values, and then you might be able to predict what their actions will be. You use their history to predict the future. You need to be ready for surprises, though. Characters might change. The plot wouldn't be really interesting if it didn't make some changes so that it doesn't go exactly where we think it'll go. And you need to keep adapting and changing your predictions as you read, because if you don't, you're going to miss the changes. Okay, the Pale Man. What you're going to do is you're going to look at it. I want you to decide, who is the Pale Man? Why is he there? What's he up to? Who is this mysterious figure that keeps moving closer and closer and closer to the narrator? I want you to list evidence that proves that you know this is who the Pale Man is, this is what he's up to. The story ends very suddenly. If we haven't read any predictions, we don't know what happened. But if we've made predictions and made inferences, we know how the story ends, and it's not so sudden. Okay? Think really hard about the narrative voice. First person, third person, what separates those. That's pretty important here in trying to figure out what happens at the end of the story. I want you to list 1 or 2 pieces of evidence, 1 to 3 pieces of evidence for that, to show me exactly you know what has happened at the end of the story. And then the last thing I want you to do is just list the strategies. What did you use to make your inferences? Okay, so that's your job. And then once we're done that, we'll call it a year. I'll probably come back. I'll come back and I'll go over that either tomorrow or sometime next week, and we'll talk about it a little bit. But right now, I just want you to read the story, have a pen in hand, watch, and then work on that. Work on making inferences. This will serve you well as you continue further in your education in English. Okay, see you guys. I'll probably have one more video this year, and then you guys, summertime is here. All right. Stay safe. Bye-bye.